Welcome to South Bay UX January edition. We are so happy you're here. Happy New Year to everyone. This is Meetup number 32, and we are talking about 10-foot displays during this meetup, which is pretty exciting. We usually meet at the Google Cloud campus in Sunnyvale, California. That's where we are when we are live in person. But due to a certain pandemic, we are live streaming all of our meetup content today. This is your meetup. If you would like to suggest a topic or if you would like to speak, do get in touch with us. We are looking for speakers. So we're always looking for speakers. And if you want to get involved with the community and run some of the community events, let us know as well. I want to thank our awesome sponsors. We have Tech Systems, who typically when we are in person provides food and nourishment for our meetup. We have Sketch, who has been a longtime sponsor of this meetup, and they provide the license raffle and some of the infrastructure. And when we are in person, Google provides the space for us to meet at. If you are not a member of our Slack group, please join today. We do send out announcements here. This is also a great place to connect about jobs, get design help, or just to chat with anyone else. And the URL here is case sensitive. Speaking of volunteering, we are always looking for volunteers. If you would like to be someone that helps find speakers, helps with community support, helps with a website, please reach out. We're going to be kicking off more volunteer efforts in the coming months. And we would love to get a list of people who are interested in volunteering. And right now we have 4 licenses from our sponsor Sketch. And typically when we are in person, we have a jar, we pull out names in a dramatic fashion and read them off. But today we used a JavaScript randomizer to pick a few folks. And our winners are Jess, PDX Mama, Kindle, and Irina. Congratulations to the winners. I will reach out to you on meetup.com and tell you how you can collect your license. Okay, I'm going to bring on Megan here, who is going to talk about who's hiring.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. If you all don't know me yet, my name is Megan, and I am with Tech Systems Digital. We are a digital services and staffing agency in the Bay Area and across North America. We help place designers with top design teams. And so if you are interested in being connected with one of our specialized design recruiters, please fill out the link. It's right there on the banner. And we will have someone from our team contact you. Also, if you are hiring, please comment in the chat what your team name is and what you're looking for so our community can all reach out. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And let's get this back in here. I am going to now bring on Kelly to talk about design at Google. Oops.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Happy number 32 meetup. My name is Kelly. I am on the UX staffing team here at Google, where we work to place designers and researchers and UX writers and UX engineers across Google products here in the US. I have shared a link to a form that if you're interested in being connected with future opportunities, things like sessions that help you navigate Google's process or future online events, please sign the form here and enjoy number 32. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you so much. And we do not have a speaker yet for next month. If you have some of that sweet UX knowledge, please do share it with the rest of us. reach out to me on Slack or any of the Meetup coordinators if you are interested in speaking, if you know someone that is interested in speaking. I'm particularly interested in getting some of the higher level topics around UX, particularly around trust and safety. And I'd like to talk about social media and the implications of how designers use ethics to ensure that all users have a good experience. So if you have experiences in those areas, please reach out and I will prioritize your talk. And lastly, tonight, I want to introduce Kristen Couture. She is coming to us from Samsung, and she is going to be telling us about designing for the 10-foot experience. And thank you very much, Kristen. Take it away.
Thanks. I'm really happy to be here. I'm really excited to talk about designing for 10-foot experiences. Before I start, I just want to give a couple of disclaimers. First, this is a really new format for me. I'm used to presenting in front of groups with people in the room, and I'm usually, very conversational. Tonight is a different story, so I'm looking forward to a time when we can all be in the same room together, and maybe they'll invite me back. And then I also have my husband here to support me as my audience, so I may look over there every now and again. Second disclaimer, I'm about 4 months pregnant, and when I decided to take this on, I had no idea that I'd be feeling so nauseous. So I'm going to be sucking on some candies throughout the presentation to help me. And my high school speech teacher, she would definitely not approve. Her #1 rule was no candy, no gum. But hopefully you guys can bear with me as I make it through tonight. Also, pregnancy brain is a real thing. The other day, I forgot my name when I was introducing myself. So if I'm not making sense, I'm going to blame it on pregnancy brain. So anyway, with those things out of the way, let's get started. Okay, so as an overview, just to give you an idea of what we're going to talk about tonight, I'm going to start out talking a little bit about me and kind of give myself a little bit of credibility. And then we're going to talk about the evolution of TV very briefly. And then we're going to kind of get into the meat of the presentation, which is designing for the 10-foot experiences and what types of things to consider as a designer. Next, I'll talk about some multi-device experiences, and then also talk about some trends that I see in TV today and what TV could possibly look like in the future. And then after that, we'll do a question and answer. All right, so a bit about me. So my education and my career has really taken me all over the world. I'm from small town Idaho. I went to school in Utah. I spent some time studying abroad in Switzerland. My first job was in Seattle. I've lived in Boston, and I also spent several years in London, which I really loved. And then my husband and I found ourselves moving to the Bay Area, working for tech companies. And I think this experience of living in different areas has really given me a different perspective and given me real opportunities to grow as a designer. So if you're thinking about making that move or looking for that next job, I definitely recommend going for it. All right, so when living in all these different places and working for these different companies, I've worked for different companies of all shapes and sizes. I've worked for agencies and startups, large corporations. I worked as a freelancer for several years. I worked on web, mobile, responsive design, and now I'm really specializing in the 10-foot experience. I'm working for Samsung based in Mountain View. And while I've been at Samsung, I've shipped a lot of different products, and these are the ones that I'm most proud of. I worked on the Family Hub refrigerator display as one of my first projects at Samsung. And the refrigerator display helps families really organize their food, activity, and entertainment in the kitchen. I also worked on the Frame TV, which is one of my favorite devices. I have 3 Frame TVs in my home. They're a beautiful display that looks like a frame, but it also displays artwork when you're not watching TV. I also worked on the SmartThings TV app, which is a dashboard for all of your IoT devices and lets users monitor and control their smart homes. And currently I'm working on Samsung TV Plus, which is an exciting new product that we're working on. It's free live streaming TV with over 160 channels where you can watch sports, news, and movies. And we're continuing to grow VOD content as well. All right. I've also worked on specific TV features and developing new concepts while working at Samsung. So that's enough about me. Let's talk about the evolution of TV. So the TV was actually invented in the early 1900s, and it really took off in the 50s and 60s when the technology became more affordable, and it also was able to reach more countries. And in the 60s, it was really key to the culture, where people were able to watch key moments in human history, like the lunar landing and the Vietnam War, and it really brought those events into their homes. And another key innovation was in 1955 with the remote control, which we still have a version of today. And then in the 80s brought more peripherals like cable boxes, VCRs, and gaming devices. And then in the late 1990s and 2000s, it brought sleeker and lighter versions of the TV. So we also have 6 different TV eras. So we started out in the 30s with black and white analog, and then moved to color in the 50s. And then in the 80s was really the rise of cable, which tended to shift away from just having antenna channels. And then in the 90s, it brought digital services like satellite high-def TV. High-def TV came into the 2000s. We also saw a lot of advances in the flat screens and image quality in the 2000s. And as the internet expanded to more regions and gained faster speeds, streaming really disrupted the TV industry. It brought on-demand content to everyone's living room, and even beyond the living room, where we now have all these different devices where we can watch content, and it's really changing the definition of TV. So for decades, we use these simple interactions with the remote, like channel up and down, and also navigating through things like a program guide. But today, with on-demand content and so many different TV services, the way we interact with TV's really changed. So we used to be in a physical space when, looking and browsing for something to watch, like in a Blockbuster. Looking for a movie with our friends, spending hours browsing, trying to find the right thing to watch. But today, we're really browsing in this virtual space with human-to-computer interactions, and we're doing this on a daily basis. And with more and more TV services becoming available, more designers are designing for these types of 10-foot experiences. So what should we consider as designers when we're designing for these types of interactions? So I've broken the considerations up into 3 different groups. The first one is viewing distance, the second is input methods, and then the third is environment. So we'll look at each of those. So viewing distance, what is it and why does it matter? And I imagine a lot of you are familiar with this as you work on mobile and laptop products. So viewing distance is the comfortable space between the user and the screen in order to easily view and operate the device. So for a small screen, the user needs to bring it closer to their face. And then with a large screen like a TV, you need more distance to see the entire screen. So for TV, you even have calculators out there that will tell you how to install your TV, what's the best distance for the size of your screen. And for a 65-inch screen, about a 10-foot distance is the ideal viewing distance. And then it just so happens to be the average distance between the couch and a TV in an American living room is also 10 feet. So that's where the name 10-foot UI comes from. But in my world, it mostly means designing for television experiences. So what does the viewing distance really mean for designing the UI of a TV? So viewing distance affects the size, the scale, and the placement of elements on the screen. So I'll give you some examples here. So if you can look at the screen and see, for example, this is Disney Plus, and you can see the Disney tile on the left-hand side, and it's of a certain size. And if we're looking at this to scale, and we compare it with a tablet or a mobile device, the size of that Disney tile is much smaller on mobile and much larger on the TV, which seems kind of like a no-brainer. But we get a lot of designers that join our team who've never worked on TV before. And as I said, it's a really growing area. So there'll be a lot of designers that will start working on TV that have never worked on TV before. So when we bring these designers in, a lot of them have mobile backgrounds, and they'll bring kind of their first design to me, and everything will be very small. And it really takes them a while to adjust to the scale and to really understand what size things should be and how much to show on the screen. But if we also put the devices into context and put them at the right distance, you can see, if you can kind of compare, the elements on screen are actually at a comfortable size, and they should be legible and easy for the user to read. So that's where the scale and the distance becomes really important. But this isn't a new idea. It applies to signage as well. While I was at university, I was a signage coordinator, and we had something similar to what I'm showing here from the Transport of London. And the Transport of London, they've had this viewing distance guide for their signs for probably over a century, and they still use it today. And it really helps the users who are designing for the underground to help them understand the scale of the typography of the sign that they're creating based on the distance from the user. So when designing for TV, you usually have some type of guideline that specifies the type sizes that you use, the different styles, and a guide to the sizes of elements like thumbnails and icons. And if you're starting out, just working on a TV project and there is no guideline, then I suggest, creating your own guideline and trying to find, the right scale for everything. Okay, so for TV, more screen real estate means more area for your eye to cover. And I have an example here of the video player UI. And you can see on the mobile version, sorry, I need to get a little bit of drink of water here. On the mobile version, you can see that the UI elements are dispersed on the screen, which is okay because it's a small device that you keep in your hands usually, and you can see the whole screen at once. It's touch, so it's easy to get to those different areas of the screen. But the TV player, I have an example here as well, where the elements are all placed on the bottom. And we actually did a usability study on a TV player UI not too long ago. And we tried a lot of different designs. Some of them dispersed items on the screen, similar to like the mobile design. And then others had more of like a cluster design where we're putting everything in a focused area. And we found that the designs that where we disperse elements on the screen, it was really splitting the attention of the user. And in the lab, we would ask them to perform a task, and they were kind of head bobbing, looking for different things. So if you see head bobbing in a usability study, you know that you don't have the right design. So anyway, by grouping all the items on the bottom of the player, users were actually able to understand what's going on the screen and make decisions quicker. And then just some general rules on TV. Like I said, grouping like items together, that's just a general design principle, but it really becomes important when you have larger screen to cover. And then also placing important elements like calls to action, above the fold and in clear view. And also just keep in mind that users often read and scan left to right, no matter if they're reading a book or if they're looking at a TV screen. So if you really want something to be seen, you'll put it up in the top right corner usually. All right, so next we'll consider input methods. So while smartphones, tablets, and laptops are controlled, using touch, or the laptop is controlled using a keyboard or a trackpad, the TV relies mostly on remote control for its input. So there are many different types of remotes. Some remotes are very small and they have few buttons. Some are complicated with lots of buttons that can control more than just your TV. Some of them have ABC or color buttons. And even the LG remote, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it actually has a pointer and a scroll wheel. So it's a very different type of interaction that they're trying out there. But regardless of remote, every remote has what we call a directional pad, or often called a D-pad. And that allows users to go left, right, up and down, and make selections. And also most remotes have some kind of a home key. And we found that most commonly used keys on the remote are left, right, up, down, home, select, and back. So those will be where your main interactions are, and those will be the main ways that you can control the UI on the screen. And the remote design really does affect the interaction. So if you're designing an app for a specific platform like Roku, you really have to get familiar with the remote and understand what buttons are available and what the interaction model is like. Okay, so using a remote also affects the navigational structure. So if we're thinking about mobile, you use touch, you usually put the navigation at the top or the bottom where it's easy for people to get to. But with TV, it's a little bit different. You usually have your navigation at the top or the side, and you just need to find a way to provide navigation that doesn't provide too much scrolling. Sometimes some apps just get rid of navigation altogether and just rely on the content rows. And in some cases, you'll need to consider shortcut keys for certain interactions that may help users get to menus more quickly. And then also, usually TV app structures, they don't go too deep into the levels, just to keep the interaction simple and really easy for the users to understand. I'm gonna take one of my candies now. All right. Okay, so D-pad control also requires motion design and visual cues that will really help to improve the interaction. So in other companies that I've worked on where we're strictly working on a website, we may not have a motion designer involved, but with TV, it's absolutely necessary. We have motion designers who can really help improve interaction by using motion. Focus states are really important to let users know where they are on the screen. And then also transitions from page to page, they really need to be thought through, and they need to be very seamless and fluid. And then also designers should keep in mind there's a directional relationship between the D-pad and the motion design. So if the user presses down, things can move up from below, just considering how motion can support the interaction. And then here's just an example from TV Plus that shows a motion study that we did. It just shows some simple interaction of showing the users where the focus state is, showing transitions from screen to screen, and then moving through the rows of content. And then another type of input for TV is voice. I would say primary interaction is with the remote control, but a secondary interaction is using voice. Users can say a command, and then they can actually get feedback on the screen, which is different from just a speaker that has to give audio feedback. And voice commands can be given by press and holding a button on the remote, which we call press to talk, or they can have far-field microphones where it will listen to a wake word followed by a command. And the interesting thing about voice on TV is it really opens up some interactions that were maybe too difficult to do before. So a couple of examples are like controlling smart home devices very easily. Also getting information like traffic and weather, and even sports scores, or you can, ask for a specific program. So we found that voice is really great for giving direct commands. If you already know what you want to watch, you can easily shortcut to content. And then it's also good to start a browsing experience, but we found that at a certain point, if users start with voice, they usually end up back to the D-pad, which is more of a natural interaction for browsing content on TV. All right, so the final consideration when designing for TV is the environment or the context. So while smartphones, tablets, and laptops are obviously mobile devices, the TV is usually a stationary device. And also smartphone, tablet, and laptop are usually personal devices where the TV is a shared device. So like I said, TVs are usually stationary and they're found in different rooms of the house. And these different rooms can have different purposes, and they can have, you know, the TV on at different times of day depending on, you know, what the people in the household are doing. So the living room and the family room, they're rooms where usually their main TV is and where the family gathers, while bedroom TVs are more of a private setting. And then there's the man cave TVs, which may have a completely different environment or purpose, like gaming or home theater experiences. So designers should really consider the context and where these TVs are and how they will be used. And then where mobile phones are personal devices, the TVs are shared. So designers need to think through all the multi-user experiences and scenarios. So, you know, when you're using a mobile phone, you're usually the only one using it. If you're, you know, watching something, you put it away, you bring it back up, you're able to easily continue watching. But with a shared device, you never know who was watching it last. So it may be in a different state than it was when you used it. And then we also need to consider the TVs for the whole family, including children. So you need to be thinking about parental controls and provide ways for safe family viewing. And there's an example here of Prime Video, who recently added kid profiles to their app. We also need to think about privacy concerns on the TV and think about appropriate ways to display things for the whole household. So one example that I give when I talk about this privacy is that we did some user research where we were trying to find ways where we can combine mobile and TV experiences. And we thought about being able to display things from your phone onto the screen. So we did several usability studies and we asked users questions. We would show them different things on the screen and ask them how they felt about it. And when we showed them an incoming call, you know, maybe from their mom, they were totally fine with showing that. But showing a text message, maybe from a friend, that wasn't appropriate to show to the whole family. So we definitely need to consider privacy, and that the screen really is for everyone in the household. Let's see. We also, I think the most important thing when thinking about TV is thinking about the mood that the user is in. So it's more of a laid-back environment. Users are usually, you know, they're watching TV at the end of the day. They're tired. They don't want to think very much. Maybe they're sat down with their dinner. And so they don't really want to spend a lot of time browsing. They don't want to do too many tasks that require a lot of effort. So designers should really make it easy for users to accomplish tasks. And it's kind of funny when we do our lab experiences or our lab usability studies, when we have people come in, we usually try to set the mood within the lab, and we turn the lights down a little bit. And it's kind of funny to see, you know, it doesn't take people very long to get really comfortable in the chair. And over time we start, you know, seeing them move down. And we've done some studies where people look like they're going to fall asleep. So it's obvious that when people watch TV, they tend to get comfortable and tired. So that's something to think about, not to make your interactions too complex. But, you know, users also, they like to do things like watching sports or playing video games, which are more engaging. And so you really just have to consider what type of content you're showing and what kind of interactions would be appropriate. And then another thing that we found in our lab a lot, and also doing user research, is that people are constantly multitasking, especially while watching TV. They're not always giving their full attention to the TV, and they usually have a device next to them. So I've kind of combined everything that I just talked about and put them into this one slide of design principles for 10-foot UI. And I'm not going to cover them all right now on this slide as we just covered them, but if you want to come back and review this, you know, all of them are here. All right, so now we can talk about some multi-device experiences. So at Samsung, we've kind of had this mantra for the past few years where everything at Samsung works better together. And I think other companies have a similar, you know, idea that you own all their products and they all work together, you get a better experience. So our product and design teams were always thinking about how additional devices can really augment the TV experience. So I have some examples. So this one is the Frame TV. And the Frame actually brings new value to the home. It allows users to easily share and display photos from their phone to the TV. So, you know, your photos usually they're kind of stuck on your phone. You might share them occasionally, but the Frame really allows users to share those photos with the whole household. So, you know, we had to design the experiences so the TV and the mobile phone would work together and that users would know, you know, where to look if they're uploading photos. You know, we'd have to instruct them of what to do and kind of designing those interactions between devices. And then the Sero is a new TV. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I actually saw this when it was being created in Korea, and it was a really interesting thing to see come to life. But the Sero basically means vertical in Korean. And the Sero TV, it's a rotating screen, which allows users to view content either horizontally or vertically. And you can easily connect your phone to it just by tapping the side of the display, and it will mirror the content from your phone onto the display. And it really is interesting to kind of see that for the first time. It just really brings a new vibe and kind of context and interest to the content on your phone. It really brings it out, makes it bigger, and makes it easier to share. One thing we found too in some of our research is that vertical video really creates this intimate relationship between the content and the viewer. It makes me think about when you have video calls on your phone and you're holding it vertically. You know, you can see more of the person and you can see more of their interaction and the way that they talk. And when you bring that to a vertical screen that's almost life size, there's a real intimate relationship you can create there with the content. So I think there's a lot of interesting things that could happen in this vertical video space. And here's another mobile use case. So it's called multi-view, and this lets users split the screen, the TV screen, to mirror their mobile device while continuing to watch content. So this allows you to kind of have a more heads-up experience. And there's a lot of different scenarios, but the users, you know, they can use the feature any way that they want. But the examples here are being able to work out using your favorite mobile app, your fitness app, and then also being able to watch your favorite content at the same time. Another example is displaying sports stats or social feeds while watching a game, which we found people are really gravitating towards. And then another really interesting project that our team's been working on is Samsung Health on TV, which launched last year. And it's basically an app on your TV that turns your living room into a workout space. So you can kind of browse through workout videos. You can you know, go through the workout video. It helps you keep track of your fitness goals. And you can also connect your smartphone and your watch to the TV that will, again, help you track your goals. And then actually what was announced this week with CES is a feature called Smart Trainer. And this is where you can attach a webcam to your TV, and it uses AI to analyze your movements and offer coaching advice that can improve your form. So it's a really fun thing that we're looking forward to adding features to. Okay, so now we'll go into trends that I'm seeing emerge. And these are some trends for today and also some trends that we'll probably see continue in the future. So a trend that we've definitely been seeing, which I think is really interesting, is that people want larger and larger TVs in their home. I think as we have these other ways to watch content, you know, through mobile devices, that the TV is becoming, you know, the biggest screen in the home, and people want it to be even bigger. And Samsung's been working on this micro LED display for a couple of years now, but it allows you to get up to 120, actually I think The largest size is 220 inch display in your home. And it uses micro LED technology that has these little panels that you put together, and you can make a display at any size and aspect ratio and install it directly onto the wall. And it's really interesting to see these large screens and what types of new experiences they can create in the home. We did a lot of research into this project as well, and we found that with the bigger screens, you can really create immersive experiences and even, you know, add ambient experiences to your home. Another thing that I think we'll see more of that we started seeing, especially with the pandemic, I think a lot of the rest of these that I'm going to talk about is really related to the pandemic and how that's also shifting how we think about TV and the purpose of TV and what capabilities the TV can have. So Netflix came out with Netflix Party, Disney Plus came out with Group Watch, and I think we're going to continue to see these types of experiences where we can watch things together, you know, especially while we're all in these different places and we're trying to find ways to connect. To be honest, we've been doing research on these kind of watch together experiences for decades, and they haven't really gotten anywhere because people weren't, it wasn't normal, you know, to kind of invite people into your home through this technology. But now it's kind of becoming the norm, and I think that will really open up these types of social experiences in the home. Let's see, and then there's, I think we'll see more live streaming on the big screen. So with Twitch, we've really seen that people are interested in this type of like live streaming, like anyone live streaming at any time. And people having followings, and I think that this will become even more relevant as time goes on, and that we'll have more of these experiences on a bigger screen, and that they can be both personal and also community-based, more like Twitch. And then beyond content, what else can TV do? TV can be used as a communication device, and I think, again, with the pandemic, this is kind of becoming more obvious, you know, especially like as I was home for the holidays and we were trying to connect with family, we were kind of wishing we had this set up on our TV just to be able to, you know, lounge around in our living room and have almost like a Christmas morning with our family. And I think, again, this could work for both personal and very like large audiences. And we're seeing, you know, not just TV companies doing this, but Facebook came out with Portal TV, and I think we'll see more and more from other companies. Another thing is telehealth, which again through the pandemic has really been growing. And even before the pandemic, Samsung has been investing, working with Kaiser and other healthcare companies to develop telehealth for mostly the elderly who, you know, they watch TV a lot. They have TVs in their home, and they're somewhat familiar with how they work. And a lot of them actually travel a long way to get to their appointments, which may cause, you know, issues and actually not be very comfortable for them to travel. So if we can bring those experiences into their home and have them connect with doctors, you know, directly from their living room, that will be, you know, a great contribution to society. And then also instruction, as we see, you know, kids doing school from home, I think that kind of opens up the door for the TV to be an instructional device as well. So as technologies advance and we add more capabilities and companion devices, such as cameras, sensors, we add processing power, 5G connectivity, and artificial intelligence, the TV really becomes more powerful, and it can be more than just a device for watching content. So this is a couple of images I pulled from my favorite movie trilogy, Back to the Future. And the first one is from 1955, where they pull out the TV to watch or while they eat. And then the second picture is from the second Back to the Future, where the TV can do much more than just watching content. So recent technologies have really changed what the TV was and what it could be. And from the 1950s boob tube to a futuristic wall computer, I'm just really excited to see what design opportunities lie ahead for the TV industry. So that concludes my talk, and we can head into question and answer. And then also, if any of you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free to look me up, but please leave me a note and let me know that you watched my talk and that's why you want to connect. Otherwise, I get a lot of LinkedIn connections, and it would be great to get some more specific information. So please look me up, and we can head into some question and answer.
Thank you very much. That was a fantastic talk. If you have questions for Kristen, please type them into the chat, and we'll be sure to get those asked. I did want to start you off with a question just kind of around the world that we're in right now. Do you think that what people have experienced through COVID stay at home will permanently transform the TV into a more of a two-way experience, or a bridge, or create a bridge to the world through augmented experiences? Is this like a long-term thing?
I think it will be a long-term thing. I mean, obviously we try to predict the future, and a lot of times we are wrong. But we've actually been doing some research recently. And like I've said, we've done research in the past with these types of experiences, and people just aren't comfortable with it. But now we're actually seeing people asking for these types of experiences. We see people trying to do their own setup in their home so they can connect with other people. So I really do see there will be a shift because of everyone being at home and trying to connect. I also think what will be interesting to see, as much as I love the movie theater, the way that we're distributing movie content is changing. I really hope we can still go to the movie theater and save our movie theaters, but at the same time, I think companies are seeing the value in releasing movies at home and are seeing the profits from it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Awesome. The other thing that I was really curious about was chicken or the egg. What comes first when designing for a new TV? Is it the hardware or the software, or do you collaborate to design both in parallel?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the frame TV is a really great example. And I also think it depends on where the product is coming from. Samsung has mostly been a hardware company, and a lot of their ideas start with hardware, and then they say, hey, designers, what can we do with it? With this interesting hardware? But I think, other companies, maybe like Facebook, they're thinking more about the experience, and then, how do we enable this experience through some kind of hardware? But like the frame TV is a good example where we were kind of working on things at the same time. So we actually had the Fuse project and Yves Behar and his company working on the concepts, and then they kind of passed those on to folks in HQ, to the hardware team there. And we would have meetings with the hardware team to talk about, what kind of hardware will this have and what kind of experiences will that open? And an example is the sensors. So there's sensors on the frame TV that will sense motion or a light source. And if there's no light source and no motion, then the screen will stop displaying the art to save energy. So we, as designers, we had to understand how that would work. But also, as the people who were designing the sensors, they needed to know, like, how, what is the distance it should sense, and what kind of sensitivity do we need? And so we worked together on those type of, both hardware and software collaborations, I guess.
So there's a question from Uni about smartphones and other devices. In your opinion, how much of smartphone and other devices have taken away from the TV experience?
I think that's a great question. And I think a lot of TV manufacturers, when they see the sale of these other devices go up, it makes them nervous. But one thing that we've been seeing, like I said, is that the size, people want bigger screens in their home. And we're also finding that people are, when they buy a new TV, They take their old TV and put it in another room, so that's increasing the amount of televisions that they have in their room. And I think people are just looking for options. And it's okay that people have these mobile devices and they're using those as well. It just actually allows us to expand services and not necessarily think directly about the device, but how can we have these services that go across all these devices, which really, from a business perspective, opens up opportunities there as well.
Okay, great. Marco has a fantastic question. Any insights into usability or applications of touch on the TV screen?
That's a good question. And one interesting thing that we're finding when we go do our ethnographic research in people's homes is we're finding a lot of very young people going up to the screen trying to touch the display. That's a good question. I mean, I think with the TV, if you think about the context of sitting 10 feet from the couch, a touch experience doesn't really, it's not a natural interaction. And because the screen is so large, you'd be very close to it trying to touch the display. But that being said, if we're thinking more about displays and maybe less about TVs, like the Family Hub refrigerator display, it is a touch device. You approach it, you walk up to it. You can also control it from a distance with your voice. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you. It's moving really fast. I'm trying to click on these. George has a question. With Samsung producing many products with screens, how do your teams share research and avoid duplicating work?
That's a great question. So the way that Samsung is structured, at least for now, is by device. So I work on their visual display team. We have specific mobile teams. We have digital appliance teams. And all of those teams, they form task forces where if there needs to be another GBM involved, that they'll form these task forces and then be able to share knowledge across those. And sometimes in a big company, people end up working on similar projects. But yeah, we try to keep it organized with task forces. And then what's also interesting is we're trying to see a little bit of a shift at Samsung of not just thinking about things like as a siloed device, but thinking of them as a service across multiple devices.
Thank you. Kevin has a question. In terms of motion on the TV, on the TV UX, has your experience or research found any difference in terms of amount of motion or speed of motion a user is comfortable with?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I talked about the guidelines for having being able to understand the size, excuse me, and placement of elements, we have similar guidelines for motion and what we found to be comfortable motion on the television. We have found that if things move too fast, users can get kind of overwhelmed or dizzy. So we do have like specific motion curves that we follow. And I would assume that other companies have something similar.
Thank you. Matt says, great talk. Thank you, Kristen. My question, do you see any implications for TV design with the VR industry and VR experiences?
That's a great question too. And I think that at the end of my talk there where I was talking about, some trends that we're seeing in the future of TV, I talked about augmenting the TV with different devices, and I think VR has a space there. What that is, I'm not really sure of. Just from personal experience with my husband using VR devices, we'll be in the same room and he's having like this amazing experience, and I'm like, what's going on? And so I think finding ways to kind of share those experiences would be interesting. And I think it'll just be really interesting to see where VR goes in the next few years.
And I apologize if I get your name wrong. Irasima has a question. Why don't TVs have cameras integrated? There are no two-way products like in Back to the Future. You can't connect in a video conference only with a television set.
You
I
know,
wonder that too.
that is a really great question. So Samsung actually, and also Sony, I have a Sony TV that has a connected camera. I think, what was that, maybe like 8 years ago, both Sony and Samsung launched a TV with embedded cameras, and they didn't sell. People were really concerned about privacy. They didn't want a TV in their home, in their living room where they spend most of their time. You know, people, I'm from Idaho, so I have friends that still don't have Alexa devices in their home, just because they, you know, they're concerned about privacy. And I think that, you know, goes for TV as well. And people have been really concerned about privacy. And even with the studies that we've done, if we do put some kind of device on the camera, they want ways to turn it off. They want confirmation that it's off. And you can see that in some of the, you know, other camera devices that we see coming out, like especially with the Amazon devices where you have like a switch. I think Portal even has a device where you can physically see that the lens is covered. So privacy is a big issue, but I think as you know, we've been going through this pandemic and people are having Zoom calls all the time. They're, you know, opening up their home to devices with cameras. I think we'll start seeing the cameras come back from the TVs.
Thank you. George asks, oops, wrong one. Sorry. These things move really quick. Okay, sorry. Luca was asking about resolution. Is there a demand for higher resolution or higher refresh rates, considering how far the technology has already come?
Yes, there is. The questions that we get when people come in to our lab to do usability testing, they say, how big of a TV can I get? What's the screen resolution? How much is it going to cost? Those are always the three questions. And even with, you know, we have 4K, we have 8K now. We even have technologies that will upscale content. People always want better resolution, even though, you know, maybe the eye can't really tell, I don't know. But yes, people want higher resolutions, and especially once we start getting into gaming and talking to gamers, they want to see the crispest screen possible and have the best experience.
Wendy, who is our community moderator and DJ in the background here, has a question. Let's talk about privacy in TV. What are key issues consumers, designers, and other stakeholders should be aware of?
Yeah, I think with some of the recent laws that have been created, a lot of people are thinking more about privacy and how that affects the products that they work on. We've actually hired people just to think about privacy within our department. I think with TV, people are concerned that data is being captured about what they're watching, and they want to be able to kind of turn that off. They don't want people to know what they're consuming. Another thing that we've talked about, like specifically within products that I've worked on, is we have a continue watching row within most of our products. So you guys are probably familiar, like with Netflix, where you can just pick right off, you know, from where you left off and watch content. And some people don't want to display that type of content, you know, thinking about the screen as a shared device. They may not want their children to know they're watching certain things, or they may not want, you know, their spouse to know they're watching certain things. And so they want to be able to kind of clear their history or manage their history. Those are a couple of privacy things I can think of. Advertising is becoming a big thing as well in TVs, which I think just makes sense. We have advertising everywhere. And a lot of people, you know, they're concerned about what their children are seeing as being advertised on TV. So they want to have the option to turn those things off as well.
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting discussion about the role of profiles and account management on smart TV. I mean, I've had issues with my kids' content corrupting my feed, and I'm sure I don't want them seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, which is my pastime. What are your thoughts on this complicated topic on a shared device?
Yeah, it is a complicated topic. One is because the TV, we kind of refer to it in our group as the last comfort device. And that's because you can just turn it on and there's content and you can sit down and not think about it. But, the more kind of steps we put in people's way to get to their content, that it just becomes, more of a process rather than just being, some entertainment that you turn on. It's also kind of hard to manage and to set up accounts through your TV can sometimes be difficult. But you see different services, like I have YouTube TV at home. They make it super easy to kind of sync your profiles throughout your devices. So I think there will be more of those like profiles. I think we'll see those a little more, but I think the TV is kind of the last place where we'll, get profiles kind of pushed in our faces. And, obviously they have their advantages as well. And I think from some of our projects where we will really want people to sign in, we have to let people know, like, what's the advantage of signing in? If they're going to go through all that effort to create a profile and sign in, we have to give a clear advantage. But yeah, it does become more complex on TV.
George has a question about audio integration. And I've run into this trouble myself with like setting up like surround sound is just really complex.
Mm-hmm.
How does your team think about that when it comes to UX, like setting up external speakers or just creating a better audio experience in general?
Yeah, so our team used to be a TV and audio team when I started. Now we're moving more towards TV and mobile, but we had designers just specifically thinking about audio and how it works with TV. And yeah, that's always a pain point with users, is trying to figure out how to connect all the audio. And I think, to be honest, like one of Samsung's answers is just provide amazing audio in the TVs. And with a lot of their TVs, I find that's pretty, satisfying. But if you do want the surround sound, it is a little bit more complex. But we did have teams doing some really interesting things where the TV would kind of work as your guide. And if you put a speaker like to the right side of the TV, it would automatically detect and connect and, just kind of like work auto magically. But yeah, to be honest, I don't know why people aren't, investing in better UX experiences with connecting audio. We had a lot of those projects that didn't really go anywhere. But yeah, audio is a huge, a huge part of the watching experience. When we were doing a usability study about immersive movies, to be honest, in the beginning, we kind of forgot about audio because we were so focused on, the goals of the visual display. And we kind of added a sound bar at the last minute, and everyone's like, I want better audio. Like, this movie would be so much more powerful if, I had these like speakers booming against my chest. So audio is definitely part of the TV experience.
Cool. So when it comes to prototyping, you've talked so much about motion and, audio and, it's such a visual and stimulating experience. It doesn't seem like static prototypes are enough. So how does your team go about prototyping the actual experiences?
Yeah, so the way our team is actually set up, we have different functions, and we have our design team, and then we have a separate function for prototyping. So we have a whole team that just brings our designs to life through a prototype. We do very high fidelity prototypes and connect those prototypes to TVs to make it feel and look like the real experience. And we connect remotes and other peripherals that are, needed for whatever we're testing. Yeah, so we create our prototypes mostly in like HTML languages and just create very high fidelity with motion and sound and everything. So that's the way we do it at Samsung.
So there's no corner cutting there.
Sometimes if we get really pressed for time, we'll do some paper prototypes and we'll have our researchers kind of walk people through it, but we find we get better response when they're actually using the device itself.
Cool. I'm going to end with one question here that I'm sure is on everyone's mind. How do I get into this game? If I want to design for the 10-foot experience, where do I go next?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, like I said, as we're seeing more of these services become available on our TVs, there's just going to be a higher demand for designers within the space. Obviously there's like the Samsungs of the world and the manufacturers, but there's also, like HBO and Hulu and Netflix and Disney and NBC. And, we're seeing all these new products. And, a lot of them are based here in Silicon Valley. A lot of them are in LA. So if you're really interested in the space, I would say maybe try doing some TV UI and putting it in your portfolio, and then trying to reach out to, if you really love Netflix and you really want to work for them, just, try to use your networking skills to connect you to somebody there. We hire fairly often, so if you're interested, you can reach out to me as well. I can't make any promises, but, we're always looking for good talent.
Fantastic. And YouTube also hires quite often. I work for YouTube. So.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I love all the YouTube products. They perform really great on our TVs. Yeah, that's a Bay Area company as well.
Yeah, we love Samsung. I do love the fact that there are so many opportunities in Silicon Valley, but I think this field is opening up quite a bit, particularly with stay at home, because people are kind of being forced to work remotely, and that opens up opportunities to work at companies where you formerly had to have a physical presence. And so, I think there's going to be more opportunities in this field for sure.
Yeah, and also the gaming industry is really booming. I think that will open a lot of new opportunities as well.
Yeah. I want to thank you for your talk tonight. It was really informative. I learned a lot from it, and I'm sure the audience did as well. Thank you, everyone, for attending. If anyone does want to speak, please reach out to me, because I do want to fill this slot on February 9th. And everyone, have a great evening. Thank you.